So what I'm going to do is, like I mentioned, hide the knot that I just made by going through another 3 beads, making sure I won't unthread my string again, making sure this knot completely goes through as well. I will make 1 more knot. So with this 1 more knot, that will be my last to ensure that it is very secure. Go through one of the black threads and make the knot, pull the knot tight, and pull it through. I'll pull it through some beads so that it hides a bit. And it is now much more secure. So I will just trim this end. I'll trim it very close and you no longer see it. And what I will do now is remove the warp threads. I like removing them as close as possible to the screw that it's fastened on, just because that way I have more thread to work with. For this specific closure type, it does matter. For others, it might not. So cutting these threads, and it's nice that it just comes off like that on either end from the springs. What a tongue twister. And I'll cut these. My scissors are not the sharpest, but they are so tiny and cute. I do have other scissors, but we'll use these tiny ones. So you have your bracelet. What I will do to fasten it is, so I'll mention 2 other options before discussing what I typically do and what I will show you how to do. So there is one option where I've done this before. I don't recommend it too much because it just doesn't feel as secure. Using one of these clasps, I often, and it depends on how much string you have, I often try and get the string through the clasp, and then I knot the string. So it will be kind of like hanging on to here. Of course, it'll be much closer to the edge of your bracelet. So it'll be hanging on to there. That's your clasp. And this will be knotted here. And you'll put maybe some super glue on the knot just to make sure it stays in place. But like I said, I like using as little supplies as possible. So I do think also these can be a bit difficult to open and close on your own. So that's one option. There are also toggles. So you put a circle on one end of the bracelet and a toggle clasp on the other. And I could show a picture of that. It's again slightly more difficult to fasten and unfasten on your own. So I'm not the biggest fan of that method of closure. There is also a slider clasp. So you would knot each of these ends together you knot them together, put some glue on your knots, and slide a clasp that will cover your last row of beads. So that one can be a good way to close your bracelet because that's another adjustable way. However, I do feel like that, or like I said, I want to make crafting accessible to more people. So less supplies, the less supplies, the better to me. So what I'm doing to make an adjustable closure for this bracelet is I'm braiding the ends. And what I'm doing is just dividing the number of ends into 3. It doesn't have to work out evenly because you won't notice really in the end product. But you divide it into 3, make a braid. You want all these, this one has a little bit too much slack. So what I'll do is go back and just make sure all the strings are tight, but not too tight in that they're bunching up like this. So you want to hold it flat while also making the first few rows, because then it just gets easier. But the first rows of most things are the most difficult. So I'm just going to braid and come to the ends. Braiding, braiding. And it's nice that the way my loom is set up, there will be one set of ends that are much longer than the other. I prefer for this method of closure to not have the ends be exactly even, because one of the ends will be knotted. So it's nice that it will have a little bit more length to it. So once I get to the end of the braid, what I will do is just add a little knot at the end, just to ensure secure closure. Now my ends aren't going to be exactly at the same place when they get this very short length. What I will do is I'll stop here and make a knot. So I'll try and get all the strings through the knot, all the strings through. Make sure nothing is left behind. And I'll try and push the knot as far as possible up while making sure that none of the strings are kind of sticking out underneath. And then I'll trim this end to make it even. But then I'll go to my next end. And this one is noticeably shorter, but that's okay because like we said, it's good to have one end a different length than the other end, because the other end will be knotted. So I am just continuing to braid this. This is just a demonstration, so I'm not doing it. Oh, it came out. So I'm not doing it super perfectly. I will likely clean up the look of it in a little bit, but we'll continue to braid until we get towards the end, when we are left with just a little bit of string. So continue to braid, make a knot. I'm going to make the knot starting far up just because that way all the strings will get into the knot. So starting far up, close to the bracelet, but then moving the knot up too. So we have both our ends, both our braided ends. And since this is the longer end, what I'll do is I'll put a knot into it. And of course, if I were having this be the final product, I would make this tighter. But before making it tighter, and of course, I would also trim these ends. So this knot will go in here. And then we can tighten the knot, and we have an adjustable closure. So I will show you putting it on. And then I often take one of the ends, or I grab onto the knot and I pull it closed. Now, taking it off, you pull and you wiggle it off you as well. So there you have it. Very easy to come on and off, adjustable bracelet. Again, you can trim your ends, make it a bit tighter, but this I would say is the most secure way to end your bracelet and a nice fun closure of it as well.